For our weekly Best in Class segment where we highlight a success story, Mastercard has been beating rival Visa. And this morning, Mastercard beat the quarter. Well, here to share his reaction to the numbers is Bill Selby, Managing Director of GAMCO Investors. And Bill, great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
So Mastercard coming in with much better than expected numbers, but lags behind Visa and I think swipes and also debit card transactions. So why is Mastercard getting an edge at this moment?
Well, they beat the street estimates primarily because they cut their advertising budget. So advertising is about 1/3 of their operating expenses. So this is a huge number. And the way you manage your way through a downturn is you cut your expenses. So they did a very good job of that. And so they came in at about 267. It just came over about 10 minutes ago, and the street was looking for about 240. So.
About 240, 242, or along those lines.
So they cut their operating expenses by about 13%, and Visa did the same thing. I mean, they're both terrific companies. Visa is much stronger in debit cards. So Mastercard has a lot of room to grow in terms of adding debit cards to their mix.
Well, I mean, cutting their advertising budget, of course, as you mentioned, they're able to manage through the economic cycles, but they've got to, of course, expand their network. And get more customers. So how do they do that while they're cutting advertising? Right.
Well, what they've said is that as soon as they see the consumers starting to spend again, they will ramp up their advertising budget, and that's going to help companies like Bloomberg and every other media company. So they're waiting and watching for signs that the consumer really is starting to spend more. They're saying they're seeing some signs, but they're waiting for a stronger indication.
Well, who's the better buy right now? Because as you say, I mean, they're both being pushed and pulled by the same forces. So what's the better buy? Is it Mastercard or Visa?
Well, golly, it reminds me of a business school class. I mean, if you look at the PE ratio on Mastercard is a little bit lower. So the price-earnings ratio on Mastercard for 2009 earnings is about 17, 17.5.
So it's a cheaper buy?
The PE on Visa is about 22 or 23. So the Mastercard is cheaper, but they're less strong in debit cards. And debit cards are a growing category because consumers are more cautious. If they pay for something now, they want it to be taken out of their account right away, so they use a debit card. So strictly on valuation, Mastercard is cheaper, but they're both unique, global. They have a toll booth. They're unique global toll booths.
Well, reading through the Visa report, I mean, as you mentioned, the debit transactions, it appears to be that they're replacing more of the credit card transactions now because people are so worried about their financial situation. So is that a place that Mastercard needs to start ramping up?
Yes, Mastercard does. So if you look at the Visa, their debit cards were up 15% this quarter versus last year, 15%. Their total cards were up about 6%. Mastercard's total cards were only up about 1.9%. So Mastercard is lagging. Having said that, the valuation is cheaper. It has just as unique of a global network. So the answer is you own both.
Okay. And Bill, when consumers do rebound, when spending does rebound, are we going to see the same double-digit growth rates for Mastercard and Visa, both top line and bottom line, as we did before this crisis? Or is this whole new normal going to be new normal growth rates for these companies?
Well, consumers are cautious. U.S. consumers have, changed their lifestyle. They're more cautious. So I don't think that investors should be looking for a return to the spending that we saw in 2005, 6, and 7. So you've got to look at these companies. They're doing a terrific job of managing their way through a downturn. They have tremendous earnings power coming out of the recession in 2010, 2011. But you shouldn't expect a return to the type of spending that we had 2-3 years ago.
And just on a personal note, as a credit card user, are we going to see fees continue to rise at these credit card companies, or are they going to actually start falling with regulation in D.C.?
Well, there's a lot of people in Washington talking about credit card fees, but so their job is not to fix prices. They're not going to. They can't tell the credit card companies what to do, but there's going to be a lot of discussion about it. So that's good for the consumer. You're not going to see fees going up. So the world is moving from paper to electronics. It's terrific for the consumer. It's good for both of these companies. But no, you're not going to be gouged by the credit card companies, I don't think.
Hopefully not anymore. Okay, Bill, thank you so much for joining us on Mastercard Visa. Bill Selby
thank you.
of GAMCO and the